Hi, my name is Vivid, and this is going to be my attempt at beating a Blitz hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon FireRed. What is a Blitz hardcore Nuzlocke, you might ask? Thankfully, it is something I invented so I can just explain it to you. For a long time, I've had the idea to blitz through a hardcore Nuzlocke without bogging my experience down with trivial things like grinding, story elements, or hey, even catching Pokemon, and today that concept is fully realized. Along with the standard hardcore Nuzlocke rules, you randomly generate 6 Pokemon at the beginning of every run. You use their base stages to begin with, they evolve when they evolve, and you can't use legendaries or mythicals. You are not allowed to catch any other Pokemon. You level up with rare candies, which not only speeds up the process but helps you avoid EV training. Teams must be the same size as gym leader fights, so since Brock only has 2 Pokemon, you can only use 2 Pokemon as well. All battles are double battles. And finally, if your entire team wipes, you reset with a random new 6. There will be a few other quality of life rules in the description down below. The overall goal of a Blitz hardcore Nuzlocke is to beat the game's main challenges of the gym leader and the Elite Four using a random team of 6 as fast as possible. You'll have to use clever team building and strategies to overcome the double battles because those will not only make the game faster, they're also going to make it more difficult. Before we jump in, consider leaving a like if you enjoyed this content, and if you're not already, please consider subscribing. Both things would mean the absolute most to me because they help the channel grow. Also, let me know what rules you would add or take away from this run to make it more enjoyable from your perspective. Okay, let's do this. Starting off my run, I generated a random team of 6 using the random Pokemon generator. I got Gorbis, Castform, Mawile, Metacam. I like this team a lot. Castform and Starmie are among my favorite Pokemon, and Mawile and Girafarig are no slouches either in my opinion. Gorbis and Metacham I'm not super fond of, but I think that they will be very good for this run. With my random team of 6 generated, I got my 6 completely randomized starters, and we were ready to start the run. So I ended up with Kiora the Clamperl, Jace the Staryu, Ugin the Girafarig, Saheeli the Mawile, Tamio the Castform, and Ashiok the Metatite. As always, my nicknames have a theme to them. If you know the theme, let me know in the comment section down below. Like I said, the entire point of this run is to go fast, so we're not beating around the bush at all, we're going straight to Brock. So I lock in Kiora and Tamio, and look, I wish I could say this fight was difficult, but both of these Pokemon have Water Gun, and both of Brock's Pokemon are quad weak to it. So both Geodude and Onix drown on the first turn, winning me my first badge and sending me off to the next gym. Misty Starmie is actually a massive problem because it has great stats and it knows Recover. Her Staryu also knows Recover, but just isn't as well endowed in the stat department. I'm not nearly as confident about this fight, but I lock in Ugin and Saheeli and challenge her. On the first turn, I double into Starmie with Stomp and Bite, and Ugin takes a really big Water Pulse and gets confused. The Staryu decides to just harden, which is perfectly fine by me. On the next turn, Ugin hits himself in confusion, but thankfully the Starmie doesn't Water Pulse into that slot and instead Water Pulses Saheeli, which means that both of my Pokemon live, and Saheeli is able to take the Starmie out with another bite. Over the next few turns, the Staryu continues to harden until it eventually Water Pulses into Saheeli, but thankfully Ugin breaks out of confusion, Saheeli doesn't get confused, and I'm able to take the star down with a combination of confusions and bites. Saheeli was only one more Water Pulse away from death in this fight, so I'm glad it ended when it did. Badge 3 is gonna be make or break for me because I have no electric immunities or resists, and 1/3 of my team is weak to electric, so I'm basically forced to use specific Pokemon here. Right now, I really wish I could upgrade my team, but I can't. But thanks to Apex Gaming PCs, sponsor of Badge 3 and today's video, I can upgrade my computer. Let me thank them real quick. I've once again teamed up with Apex Gaming PCs to bring you the Invivid Colorline collaboration. My PCs are built in the most colorful cases possible for obvious reasons, and I was also informed just recently that starting now, Apex builds can now be upgraded with the 4000 series GPUs, the 7000 series Ryzen CPU, and the 13th generation of Intel CPUs, meaning there is an entire range of builds from an introductory PC to something that will crush absolutely everything you can throw at it. If you click my custom link in the description down below, you will find 3 different builds, the Great, Ultra, and Master, and whichever one you pick depends on what you need out of a system. Each tier comes with guaranteed frame rates for some of the most popular games in the world, so whether you're trying to crush noobs in a first-person shooter, mine diamonds, or who knows, maybe make Pokemon videos and upload them to YouTube, then there is a machine for you. All Apex PCs are customizable, each tier is upgradable even to those top-of-the-line GPUs and CPUs I mentioned earlier, and there are financing options available so you don't have to pay the entire cost up front if you don't want to. And the best part? If you click my custom link and use code INVIVID at checkout, you can save up to 15% off of your purchase. So if you're in the market for a new computer, click my link in the description down below and see if an Apex Gaming PC is right for you. Thank you so much Apex for sponsoring this video and helping me to continue making content. Now that it's time to fight Surge, I lock in with Ugin, Saheeli, and Ashiok. These 3 should theoretically give me the best odds against Surge, and also 2 of my other Pokemon are just weak to electric, so they're no-goes here. I lead off with Ugin and Saheeli, and on turn 1, Ugin lands a confusion that also manages to confuse the Voltorb, forcing it to hit itself in confusion, Pikachu lands a Thunder Wave on Ugin, paralyzing him, and a Rock Tomb from Saheeli is enough to finish off the Pokeball. Lieutenant Surge sends out his ace Raichu next, so I start doubling into it as both of the electric rodents on the field just start double teaming. Thankfully, both Stomp and Rock Tomb land on the Raichu, taking it down to the yellow. On the next turn, Pikachu continues setting up double teams, Saheeli's Rock Tomb misses, and a Shockwave from Raichu actually does a sizable amount to Ugin, but then Ugin manages to break through the evasion and the paralysis and land a Stomp, taking the bigger electric rodent out. From this point in the fight, Pikachu does nothing but double team, allowing me to eventually connect some hard-hitting attacks to drop it. The mascot of the whole ass franchise just decided to never attack, but hey, we'll take it because it gets us our 3rd badge, unlocking our way to Celadon City and the 4th badge in Erica. This gym fight is actually a pretty substantial ramp up in difficulty for us because not only is Erica's entire team fully evolved, once again, it is a type that is good against water types, which make up 1/3 of my team. So I decide on locking in Ugin, Tameo, and Ashiok for the fight, and then we challenge her. I lead off with Ugin and Tameo is particularly good here because even though Sunny Day is good for Erica's entire team because of chlorophyll, it turns my little cast form into a fire type. On the first turn of the battle, Ugin goes for a confusion that takes the victory bell down to the red, and it responds by paralyzing Tameo with a stun spore. Tameo sets up the Sunny Day, transforming into a fire type, making the Tangela's Giga Drain not very effective, which is a pretty sweet play in my book. Erica fully heals the victory bell on the next turn with a hyper potion, and Ugin takes it right back down to the red. Tangela goes for another Giga Drain, this time on Ugin, and it does a sizable chunk, but then Tameo just obliterates the spaghetti plant with a sun boosted flamethrower. Vileplume comes out next, and despite both of these plants being sped up because of the chlorophyll boost, a confusion from Ugin is enough to knock out the victory bell, and a flamethrower from Tameo is enough to take out the Vileplume on the next turn, winning us our 4th badge. And this one was mega important because now we can fully evolve the rest of our team. So back to back to back, I evolve Kiora into Gorbis, Jace into Starmie, and Ashiok into Medicham, meaning my team is now super juiced. The next 2 fights have the same level cap, so I decide to take on Koga first. I lead off with Ugin and Jace because they have stellar matchups versus Koga, and on the first turn I double into the Muck slot with my newly obtained Psychics. Muck survives the first hit but then goes down to the second, forcing Koga to send out another Coughing. His Coughing on the field then goes for a self-destruct, which almost takes out Ugin and Jace and takes out his own Coughing. My heart dropped at the same rate their HP bars did because if both of these Pokemon died right now, it's almost certainly a reset later. Thankfully, they both just barely hang on, and Koga sends out his ace Weezing, which easily falls to a double Psychic Barrage, winning me the 5th badge. Next up is Sabrina, so I lock in Ugin, Ashiok, Kiora, and Saheeli, and it's go time. I lead off with Ugin and Ashiok into her Mr. Mime and Kadabra, and on the first turn, Ugin is the fastest Pokemon on the field, so it moves first, knocking out the Mr. Mime in one shot with the Shadow Ball. Then Kadabra sets up a Reflect, which actually makes my game a little bit harder from here, but thanks to pure power, Ashiok's Shadow Ball is a one-shot regardless. Sabrina sends out Venomoth and Alakazam, and I decide to just completely ignore the Moth and double up into the Alakazam slot with Shadow Ball. The Alakazam manages to outpace my team and hits Ashiok with a Psychic that does over 50%, but then it falls to the double up Barrage. Venomoth ends the turn by just confusing Ugin, so on the next turn, I double switch out into Kiora and Saheeli, taking an incredibly soft Leaf Light on the switch in. Kiora and Saheeli double into the Venomoth with a Psychic and a Rock Tomb, taking it out. I'm always a little terrified of Sabrina, but thankfully we had the Pokemon to take her on. Our next gym leader though is going to be the most difficult opponent I've had this entire run. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. It's Blaine. He has only fire types, and once again, a high percentage of my team is composed of water types or Pokemon that can become water type. There's really not much to say about this fight other than Blaine never stood a chance with Gen 3's double battle mechanics. You see, Surf only hits the enemy side of the field, and whenever a Pokemon faints on the enemy side of the field, they're forced to replace it in the middle of the turn. So on turn 1, Jace's Surf drowns Blaine's Growlithe and Ponyta, forcing him to bring in Arcanine and Rapidash before Gorbis' Surf even goes off. Then Gorbis' Surf goes off, dropping both of them to low health, and a double Surf Barrage on the next turn is enough to clean up the fight without any of Blaine's Pokemon ever getting to select an attack. And look, I know this is a little repetitive, but blame it on Kanto putting back-to-back Water Week gyms at the very end of your gym challenge, because the exact same thing happens in Giovanni's gym. Jace and Kiora just get to drown his entire team without without any of his Pokemon ever getting to select an attack. So that's badge 7 and 8 down back to back, meaning we're in the end game now and headed to the Elite Four. After making some minor tweaks to my team and planning for future fights, I head in and challenge Lorelei. I lead off with Jace and Ashiok into her Dugong and Cloyster, and on turn 1, I one-shot the Cloyster with a Thunderbolt and then one-shot the Dugong with a Brick Break, forcing Lorelei out into her Lapras and Slowbro. I run back essentially the same turn, Thunderbolting her Slowbro and Brick Breaking her Lapras, but this time both of her Pokemon live, Slowbro in the yellow and her Lapras in low red. Lapras then confuses Jace with a Confuse Ray, and Slowbro uses Ice Beam on Ashiok and manages to freeze him, which is infuriating. Starmie starts off the next turn by hitting itself in confusion, but Ashiok actually manages to thaw out on the first turn and takes down the Lapras with another Brick Break. Slowbro then yawns the Ashiok, which is a terrible play since it was frozen at the beginning of the turn, and then Lorelei finishes the turn by sending out her Jinx. Jace once again starts off another turn by hitting itself in confusion, and then Jinx lands a lovely kiss, putting Jace to sleep. Ashiok, who I declined to switch out, one-shots the Jinx with a Shadow Ball, and then for reasons unknown to me, Slowbro goes for a second yawn, which obviously fails. On the next turn, I switch Jace out for Ugin, who comes in and is able to finally take out the Slowbro with a crunch, winning me my first Elite Four battle. Bruno is up next, and he is historically the weak link of the Kanto Elite Four, and this fight is no different. The combination of Jace and Kiora is way too strong for him to handle, since Jace can Psychic down his fighting types, while Kiora surfs down his rock ground types. It's a clean sweep into the third Elite Four members room. Agatha is up next, and her team can actually be pretty intimidating. I lead off with Ugin and Ashiok into Gengar and Golbat, and on turn 1, I have Ugin set up a Calm Mind, while Ashiok just murks her Gengar with a Shadow Ball. Agatha herself manages not to accomplish much, as her Gengar goes for a Shadow Punch on Ugin, which just cannot hit him, and her Golbat hits my team with an Air Cutter that does light chip. She sends out her second Gengar, and on the next turn, I decide that a Psychic from Ugin into the Golbat and a Shadow Ball from Ashiok into the Gengar is the best play. Spoiler alert, this is not the best play, it's not even a good play. Her Gengar is now the fastest thing on the field, and Shadow Balls Ashiok down, taking him out in just one hit. I really thought he would be able to live one, since Shadow Ball in the third generation is coming off of Gengar's far inferior physical attack stat, but this was not the case. Ugin manages to land a Psychic on the Golbat, taking it out, and I'm forced to bring in Saheeli as Agatha brings out her Arbok. On the next turn, I have Ugin go for a Psychic into the Gengar, and Saheeli set up an Iron Defense since most of Agatha's attackers are attacking with physical moves. The Gengar once again outpaces and puts Ugin to sleep with a Hypnosis, and Saheeli gets off an Iron Defense as the Arbok harshly lowers Ugin's defense with Screech. I decide to stay in with Ugin since he has Early Bird, and the Gengar puts Saheeli to sleep as well on the next turn, but Ugin manages to wake up and takes out the Gengar with a Psychic. But then, not realizing how devastating a Screech was to Ugin's defenses, Arbok attacks Ugin with a Sludge Bomb and manages to grab the second KO of this fight. I've gotten through every challenge up to this point without losing a single team member, and Agatha has now managed to claim 2 party members in one fight. Not a fantastic feeling. Thankfully, I still have Jace in the back, so I send them out, and 2 Psychics are enough to clean up Agatha's remaining 2 Pokemon while Saheeli just stays asleep. Okay, that was a devastating fight, but thankfully, Lance should be a breeze as long as I don't forget to put Ice Beam on Jace before fighting him. By the way I said that, you should understand that I forgot to put Ice Beam on Jace before fighting him. So we end up challenging Lance with only 4 Pokemon, and they do not have the movesets that I wanted them to have. I lead off with Jason Tameo into his Gyarados and Dragonair, and on turn 1 when I realize I don't have Ice Beam, I feel like we've lost the run. I start off the fight by having Jace Thunderbolt the Gyarados and have Tameo set up the Hail. The Gyarados drops to the singular hit, and the Dragonair uses Dragon Rage on Tameo, which is a much better outcome than Outrage. Lance replaces his Gyarados with Aerodactyl, so on the next turn I have Jace go for Surf and Tameo for Blizzard. The Surf connects, leaving the Aerodactyl under half health, but then the Aerodactyl manages to get off an Ancient Power into Tameo, which drops her to what has to be a singular hit point. Tameo, hanging on for dear life, goes for a Blizzard, which drops the Aerodactyl to just a sliver of health and the Dragonair to just slightly more than that. Then miraculously, instead of attacking, the AI just decides to set up a Safeguard with Dragonair. The chip from the Hail is enough to drop Aerodactyl, forcing Lance to send out his ace Dragonite. On the next turn, I switch Tameo out for Saheeli as Lance heals his Dragonair to full with the full restore, and then have Jace start chipping down the Dragonite with Psychic since once again, it does not have Ice Beam. Saheeli takes a strong Outrage Outrage in return, dropping it to just above half health, but a follow-up Psychic and Rock Tomb combo on the next turn are enough to take the Dragonite out. Lance sends out his final Dragonair, and with Saheeli low, I switch into Kiora. From this spot, I just go for a Rain Dance with Kiora, and the combination of Jace's Psychic and Kiora's Rain-boosted Surfs are enough to win the damage race against the two Dragonairs, meaning we've now beaten the Elite Four and only have one challenge in front of us before we beat the entire Blitz run. I meant to name my rival Papa C at the beginning of this run, but instead I hit no when Oak asked me if Papa C was the correct name, and then accidentally selected the default name of Green. So my rival's name is Green, but just pretend it's Papa C. Either way, Papa C's team is stacked, and we only have 4 Pokemon left, and they are all wildly underleveled when compared to Papa C's Ace. Still, I think with our Rain Core, we might have a shot at this. So I lead off with Jason Kiora into his Pidgeot and Alakazam, not wanting to waste any time. On the first turn, I have Jace go for a Thunderbolt into the Pidgeot slot, thinking that it will one-shot, but it doesn't even come close. Then Alakazam Psychics Kiora down to the low yellow, and Pidgeot Aerial Aces, and Kiora manages to live on just a sliver in the red. Kiora gets off the Rain, which means I am now set up to actually do some real damage. On the next turn, Jace and Kiora both lock into Surf, and thanks to Swift Swim, Kiora is now the second fastest thing in play. The first Surf manages to take out Pidgeot, bringing in Executor, but then the second Surf doesn't quite KO the Alakazam, instead leaving it in the red. But thankfully, the AI is garbage here, and Alakazam goes for Psychic into Jace, which is resisted and doesn't do a ton of damage. On the next turn, Papa C full restores his Alakazam, taking it back to full health, and an Ice Beam and Surf combo are enough to take out the Executor and leave the Alakazam at just above half health. C sends out Rhydon, and from here, it's an all-out Surf assault. Jace's Surf manages to one-shot the Rhydon, bringing out Arcanine, and then Kiora's Surf manages to finish off the Alakazam and drop the Arcanine below half health, bringing out Papa C's final Pokemon, his ace, Blastoise. On the following turn, I lock into Thunderbolt and Surf, but this Arcanine knows Extreme Speed, which is just something I forgot, so it manages to outpace my entire team and takes out Kiora. I replace Kiora with Tameo, who transforms into her water form upon hitting the field because the rain is still up, and Thunderbolt doesn't even do half damage to Blastoise, leaving me in a terrible spot since Blastoise's rain-boosted Hydro Pump drops Jace to the red. I decide to take a turn off of attacking and use Recover with Jace and Rain Dance with Tameo, so Jace goes to above half health again, but then thankfully Blastoise doesn't attack and instead also uses Rain Dance, transforming Tameo into her water form once again, meaning she actually resists the flamethrower that Arcanine goes for, which is almost the perfect turn here. On the next turn, Jace Thunderbolts the Blastoise, dropping it to the red, but then Blastoise pops off with another rain-boosted Hydro Pump, dropping Tameo from almost full health to just a sliver. Arcanine then goes for a Bite, which drops Jace to about a quarter health, but Tameo, who is hanging on for dear life, manages to get off a rain-boosted Weather Ball, taking out the Arcanine. At the end of the turn, Blastoise eats its Citrus Berry, taking it to above a quarter health, meaning Papa C won't even full restore it on the next turn, and with that, one final Thunderbolt is enough to take it out, winning us not only this fight, but the entire Blitz run. So that's it, an entire Nuzlocke run done as fast as possible. I honestly had a lot of fun doing this, and this is a format that I could see myself improving on and doing again in the future. So if you enjoyed this, let me know in the comment section down below, and also, once again, please let me know what rules you would add or take away, or how you would change this sort of run to make it more enjoyable from your perspective. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video and for all the continued support, but my name is Vivid. I'm kind of done here and I have to leave. Bye.